Chapter 321, The Girl with a Broken Mouth. Hey, you should have said it earlier. When Vivienne saw the money bag in Anduin's hand, her eyes instantly turned into dollar signs. Boss, if you have any orders, just say it. I knew from the day I met you that Anduin Wilson is an outstanding young man with a sense of loyalty and a conscience. He will definitely not forget our good brothers when he gets benefits. Vivienne's demeanor changed faster than flipping a page in a book. Just moments ago, she was grumbling unhappily, but now she was all smiles and eager to please. Okay, just say a few words, Anduin sighed helplessly. If it wasn't absolutely necessary, he wouldn't have sought out this gossip girl. Her presence could turn any place into a bustling market. So, what kind of work do you want me to do? You didn't specify in the letter. With your strength, you must not need me to fight, Vivienne laughed, then looked around the environment. Wow, you said you got a house in Diagon Alley, so this is it? It's been so long, and you never thought to call me over for a visit. It's really heartless. Hey, Gringotts is right across from your house? The environment is nice. Isn't it convenient to go shopping in Diagon Alley? Speaking of which, can I stay with you for a few days? I haven't seen the night view of Diagon Alley yet. Vivienne completely ignored Anduin's advice and began to explore his house on her own, touching and looking at everything. She even stuck her head out of the window to observe the scenery of Diagon Alley. To be honest, Anduin was starting to regret his decision. Having Hog in the family was already annoying enough, and now there was another chatterbox. That's enough. I came here for business. If you can help, then we can discuss whatever you want. Anduin quickly stopped Vivienne, who was fumbling around and had grabbed a chicken leg, staining his curtains with oil. So just tell me what you want me to do. But I've agreed. I won't do physical work. As a lady, I won't do that kind of demeaning thing, Vivienne declared proudly. Anduin couldn't help but roll his eyes. What you call a lady is when you play Quidditch and knock someone down with a stick, he thought to himself. Don't worry, this matter is very simple for you. I just need your help to come up with an idea, which is about business. In a few words, Anduin explained the difficulties he was encountering. Vivienne came from a big family and was also a half-blood wizard. She usually liked to gossip and play, so she had insightful ideas about both pure-blood and half-blood wizards. So, during a summer vacation, you opened a company? Well, you actually opened a shop secretly while we weren't paying attention. Vivienne's brain worked in strange ways. She seemed more surprised by the fact that Anduin had opened a shop than by the help he needed. I mentioned this to you a long time ago. You were absent-minded all day and didn't pay attention. Who made you come late and leave early every time for training? I'm here to help you, not to complain. Anduin gave Vivienne a cold look. Is that so? Vivienne looked at Anduin blankly. She vaguely remembered that Anduin had indeed said something to her, but she had forgotten all about it as soon as the summer vacation was over. Okay, what do you mean? Let me be a consultant for your product to see if there is room for improvement. It's just about the appearance. The function of the product is already complete. You've seen all the things I sell. They are the alchemy props that I asked you to help test. Anduin heaved a sigh of relief, finally getting to the point. Okay. Vivienne recalled a little, then nodded. Then take me to see the finished product first, and let me tell you, if you're not satisfied with my idea, I won't refund the money. Anduin nodded helplessly, and then brought Vivienne to the store on the first floor. Due to poor business yesterday, Anduin decided to close the store today for adjustments. As soon as Vivienne entered, she curiously observed the surroundings, more like an ordinary girl shopping than someone there to help. Wow, this Raven magic lamp is really interesting. Your products are fascinating. It makes me want to buy one, Vivienne exclaimed, captivated by the small props on the counter. She then looked puzzled at Anduin. Aren't your products very good? That's just an auxiliary lighting fixture I made before. Not a commodity, Anduin replied, looking embarrassed. He had developed the magic lamp into a product later on. Even Vivienne could see its market potential. Why hadn't he realized it before? Am I really not suited for business? Anduin began to doubt himself. Instead of selling those dangerous weapons of yours, you might as well sell this. Many people will like it, Vivienne suggested, unknowingly hitting a sore spot for Anduin. I see. Don't just focus on the lights. Help me look at other things, Anduin said, changing the subject. Okay, Vivienne replied, somewhat bored. She then looked around. Your decoration is very distinctive. Are you sure you don't have an eye for aesthetics? The magic textures on the walls and seats are beautiful. Why don't you just sell the furniture? Just your chair alone could sell for 3 to 5 galleons, Vivienne said, rubbing a small table with bright eyes. No, these pieces of furniture will lose their effectiveness once moved out of this house. The magic lines work because the whole room is connected with magic power. Without that supply, the lines will naturally fade, Anduin explained. The continuous display of these furnishings came at the cost of constant magic consumption. They were made of ordinary wood, and even with inscribed runes, they wouldn't last long. Adding magic materials to make accessories would increase the cost. So that's the case, Vivienne said, curling her lips helplessly. She finally turned her attention to the products. You're only selling a few things? She asked, looking at the heavily homogeneous shelves with wide eyes. I remember you developed a lot of alchemy props. What about your tactical vest and magic handcuffs? Why aren't they on display? Those products are relatively dangerous. Only professionals can buy them, and they cannot be sold to commoner wizards, Anduin explained. End of this chapter. Chapter 322, The Insightful Girl. Vivienne placed her hands on her forehead and looked at Anduin with a mix of exasperation and disbelief. So you're telling me that the only products you can sell right now, including the unimproved humanoid targets, are just 5 types? Anduin nodded helplessly. At the moment, yes. Vivienne sighed, her frustration evident. Then you're running a pretty lousy business. These products look like semi-finished goods. They don't match your store's decor at all, and you're selling them at such high prices. She picked up a defensive amulet with disdain, examining it as if it were a piece of junk. That's why I came to you, Anduin shrugged. I need your help to see if there's anything we can do to improve them. By the way, didn't I give you a similar talisman? I don't remember you being this critical before. Humph. Vivienne put her hands on her hips and snorted triumphantly. That's because it was a gift before, so I didn't mind if it was a semi-finished product. If you had sold it directly, no one would have bought it. She then pulled out a chain from her collar, revealing a pendant. I can reprocess semi-finished products. Didn't you see that I turned the amulet you gave me into a pendant? Anduin took a closer look. Indeed, the pendant in Vivienne's hand was his amulet, but it had been completely transformed. The original metal coin was now a round-faced rabbit head with a cartoonish big white rabbit face painted on it. The circular part in the center of the rabbit's face was the talisman, and the 2 ears had been added later. Vivienne's DIY efforts had made it quite cute and interesting. See? This is a finished product. Making it like this is much better than your plain piece of iron, Vivienne said, smiling triumphantly. Indeed, if the talisman is made into a pendant and some beautification is done, it will look much better. Anduin nodded approvingly. I just drew some interesting patterns with paint. You can also carve some exquisite designs on the surface. It's even better if you add some magical effects, like the magic lines on the furniture, Vivienne suggested. No, the current talismans are all engraved with runes in a clear way, so it's not easy to add more engravings, Anduin said hesitantly. Are you stupid? Vivienne rolled her eyes. You only engraved one side. You can engrave the other side, or if you really can't engrave more, then put a cover on it and engrave that. A cover? Anduin raised his eyebrows, intrigued by the idea. Yes, a single talisman is too thin and monotonous. Put a leather, cloth, or metal shell on the outer layer and do some artistic processing. Whether it's carving, embroidery, or painting, it can make them look much more appealing. Vivienne explained. Is it really possible to do this? Anduin felt as if he had been awakened, instantly realizing the potential. Of course, the effect of a defensive talisman is triggered by stress. It doesn't have to be made into a pendant hanging on the chest. You can add some decorations and make them into pendants, bracelets, brooches, or belt buckles, Vivienne continued, showing a string of bracelets on her wrist. See this? These are the communication amulets you gave me and Charles. I made them into couple bracelets, making it much more convenient for us to communicate. So like your communication bracelet, it can be processed into pairs of pendants, bracelets, and other couple props. Originally, these props were used for communication on the battlefield, but with a little packaging, they can be transformed into symbols of love. It's actually very simple. To put it bluntly, it's just changing the appearance and then making up a story or something. Anduin listened intently, feeling a surge of inspiration. Vivian's insights were not only practical, but also opened up a world of possibilities for his business. It's so hard to sell items one by one. Isn't it much easier to sell them in pairs? Young couples would love it more. I think they would be happy to buy one as a gift for their partner, Vivian explained, her excitement growing with each word. Anduin looked at Vivian with a sudden realization. This person was not simple. He had indeed found the right person. I see. So these talismans can be packaged like this. It seems I've been too focused on research and have ignored many basic things, Anduin said, smiling at Vivian with satisfaction. Not just these talismans, but other items too, Vivian continued, pointing to the other products on sale. For example, protective gloves. You can package them in different colors, matching the gloves on the other hand, or make them look cooler. I think boys would find them very appealing. Vivian's eyes lit up as she thought of something else. You could even make them into Quidditch gloves and sell them to Quidditch enthusiasts. But isn't it against the rules to use privately brought alchemy props in Quidditch? Anduin asked, frowning in confusion. Shh! Quidditch also says fouls are prohibited, but you see fouls in every game. Cheating is part of the game. If someone gets caught, their equipment will be confiscated. Frequent confiscations will only increase your sales. You're just selling alchemy props that look like Quidditch gloves. It's not your responsibility how they're used, Vivian said nonchalantly. Anduin listened to Vivian's words, feeling a mix of amusement and disbelief. She could talk about cheating so confidently. And the self-test pocket watches you made, didn't you notice a big problem with this product? Vivian asked, crossing her arms and looking at Anduin with a critical eye. Problem? What problem? Anduin asked, puzzled. Why does this self-testing alchemy tool have to be combined with a pocket watch? You could take out the self-testing component and sell it to St. Mungo's Hospital for magical maladies and injuries. They would be the most in need of such equipment, Vivian pointed out sharply. Anduin's mind suddenly cleared. She was right. He had combined the self-test and scanning tools with a pocket watch for convenience and space saving. When it became a product, he continued with the pocket watch form out of habit. That's a brilliant idea, Anduin admitted, feeling enlightened by Vivian's insight. Chapter 323, Wen Chao Gong Vivian's suggestion. So, it's a failure to make this kind of self-check prop into a pocket watch. You might as well split it into two parts, the self-check prop and the pocket watch, and sell them separately, Vivian suggested. I can understand making a self-check item directly, but what's so good about selling a separate pocket watch? It's not an alchemy item, Anduin frowned slightly. Brother, are you confused by your research on alchemy? Most of the alchemy items sold on the market are not powerful props like yours. There are many products in the name of alchemy props, but in fact, they are just some beautification, Vivian explained. You can add some exquisite engravings on the ordinary pocket watch for beautiful magic lines, or even stick a magic picture on the inside, and then you can sell it as an alchemy item. Just like the Waziak Magic Supply Store, their brass balance is just a little strange in shape, with some magical decorations that have a good mechanical feel. Vivian's inspiration. After Vivian talked about this, her inspiration exploded. You can also use this as an entry point to make some similar products, such as magic clocks, magic music boxes, magic gramophones, etc. These may not be very practical, but they can be sold as luxury items just because of their mysterious appearance. But, Vivian hesitated, these things are basically directly improved Muggle items. Do you think the Ministry of Magic will agree? Didn't you say that you can't cast spells on Muggle items at will? You don't have to worry about this, Anduin reassured her. He had already considered the possibility of modifying Muggle items in the future. Arthur, the director of the Muggle Protection Office, is still a shareholder of his company. He manages himself, so how can he break the law? Even if it is really broken, the law can be changed now. Vivian's new idea. If you really don't worry about casting spells on Muggle items, we even. Vivian's eyes lit up as if she had thought of a good idea. We can even make some magic mahjong to sell. It must be very popular. Magic? Mahjong? Anduin was taken aback. Isn't that a Muggle item? Can it also be made into an alchemy item? What's the matter? You didn't watch the so-called wizard's chess. It's just chess with some magic effects added. You make it look like a magic prop, and it's done. Vivian rolled her eyes. She found that Anduin's associations in entertainment were too poor. How to do it? Anduin was dumbfounded by her words and looked at Vivian blankly. If you want my opinion. Vivian immediately mobilized her brain that is good at associating. You can enchant these mahjong tiles, get some card backs with animation effects, and then make a manual with dynamic tutorials. Let the mahjong tiles have the effect of automatically shuffling. Don't talk about others. Anyway, our mahjong club and I will definitely like it very much. Let those pure-blood families mock us for playing boring Muggle toys. A game room? Aren't you talking about an automatic mahjong machine? And you're doing it purely for your own benefit. Does anyone really buy this kind of thing? Anduin looked at Vivian with a slightly suspicious look. Also, Vivian scanned the storefront again. Your environment is so good, and you play games in the spare space at the back. Why don't you just set aside a space and use it as a game room for playing mahjong? Fill it with mahjong tables so that other wizards can play mahjong to their heart's content. I guess you can make a lot of money selling drinks and snacks. No, Anduin shouted with a face of resistance. He didn't want to turn this into a mahjong room. It was too noisy. He thought Vivian's ideas were getting out of hand. Shh, it's fine if you don't want to. If I graduate and open a mahjong bar in the future, the business will definitely be good, Vivian said, her eyes twinkling with mischief as she saw Anduin visit the store. She had some plans forming in her mind. Okay, let's improve it as you suggested before, but I won't turn my mahjong room into a noisy bar, Anduin replied firmly, resisting the idea of transforming his peaceful space. In that case, my work here is done. How about the service? Are you satisfied? Vivian asked, patting her bulging purse with a satisfied smile. Yes, you really helped me come up with a lot of ideas, Anduin nodded approvingly. But I don't have any good ideas about the design appearance. How about this? I'll hire you as the company's planner. I'll pay you to design the products, and I'll handle the production. What do you think? Vivian's eyes sparkled with mischief. That's fine. I'll help you out as best as I can, but you have to promise me one condition. What condition? Anduin asked warily, suspecting she had something up her sleeve. I'll help you design the products, but you have to help me create a magic mahjong set. Even if you don't sell it, I want one for myself, Vivian demanded, pouting slightly. Well, okay, Anduin nodded helplessly. It seemed this girl was truly addicted to mahjong. Anduin then closed the store completely and set aside a space in the testing room for Vivian to use as an office. She began designing various products for him, and he worked on creating samples. Fortunately, Anduin had a fireplace, and Vivian used the Flu network to commute daily, making the process efficient. Although Vivian's academic performance at Hogwarts was average, her creativity was exceptional. She provided Anduin with numerous product samples. Later, Anduin discovered that Vivian had a secret weapon, various fashion magazines from the Muggle world. Despite being a witch, she had a strong affinity for Muggle habits, including reading magazines. Vivian drew inspiration from these magazines, copying classic models and new products from trendy Muggle brands. She adapted these designs to hold various talismans, creating stylish pocket watches, clocks, music boxes, and gramophones. As long as they looked good, she incorporated them into her designs. End of this chapter. Chapter 324, The Razor Law. When Vivian is immersed in her design work, her creativity knows no bounds. She conjures up all sorts of ideas, regardless of their feasibility. For instance, she designed a special magic lamp with a lampshade resembling a large glass ball, inside which a wick transforms into various cute animals. Another of her creations is a colorful phonograph, where the vinyl record is designed like a stage. As the music plays, magical characters perform songs and dances on it. She even made a 4-season version, where the scenes and characters change with the seasons, creating a mesmerizing spectacle. However, her most outrageous design is a mahjong table. Not only does the table feature dynamic effects, like water surfaces and grass, but she also envisions a strong light and shadow presentation when playing cards, making the cards fly into the sky. Anduin often suspects that she spends more time on these whimsical designs than on practical ones. While Vivienne's designs are like daydreams, Anduin faces the challenge of figuring out how to bring them to life. He has to determine the feasibility of her ideas and then create sample tests. Sometimes he feels like a part-time worker with Vivienne as the boss. Eventually, he realizes that many of her ideas are simply impossible to realize in a short period. Considering that the store can't remain closed indefinitely, he decides to focus on simpler, more operable designs that can be sold first. The more complex ideas can be saved for future development. Anduin's plan is to create some simple yet gorgeous products to use as new offerings, ensuring sustainable development. For production, he comes up with a better strategy. He plans to outsource all the physical parts without magical effects, such as pendants, belts, bracelets, and pocket watches, to the Muggle world. Since he also owns a Muggle shop, he can specify the designs and have a crafts factory produce them. He then adds the magical elements, turning them into enchanted items. For other decorations like gramophones, lamps, music boxes, and clocks, he buys ready-made ones from the Muggle world and transforms them into magical items. With Arthur in charge of the Ministry of Magic, Anduin can modify Muggle items without fear of repercussions. If anyone else enchanted so many Muggle items, they would have been arrested by the Misuse of Muggle Items Office long ago. Through the process of dismantling and modifying these magical props, Anduin learns more about business strategies. He decides to focus on magic lamps and magic phonographs as the main civilian alchemy props. He discovers a very cost-effective strategy, which he calls the Razor Law. Anduin realizes that he can split many props, such as lamps and gramophones, into 2 parts. For example, the lamp in his hand doesn't have a traditional light bulb. Instead, it uses an internal component that stores magic power. By engraving an energy-absorbing spell rune, it can continuously absorb magic power and shine for a long time. However, Anduin doesn't fully utilize this potential because he finds a better way to make money. He deliberately makes the magic power storage element detachable, similar to a light bulb. Additionally, he reduces the performance of the alchemy storage components, allowing them to work for only 2 or 3 months before the magic power is exhausted. This efficiency is similar to that of magic candles and magic oil lamps on the market. He then sells the main part of the lamp very cheaply. For example, a vertical magic table lamp that can automatically. The magic lamp, which absorbs magic power and keeps shining, can be sold for 4 to 5 galleons. However, after incorporating magic components and transforming it into a table lamp, it is sold for only 2 galleons. The magic components themselves are priced at 5 silver sickles. This pricing strategy ensures that as long as the customer continues to use the lamp, they will need to keep purchasing energy storage components. Consequently, the actual income generated from such a lamp is much higher than its initial selling price. Additionally, there is a promotional activity where customers can exchange a scrapped magic element for a discount of 1 sickle. This approach not only reduces costs, since the magic part in Anduin's modified lamp is merely the magic component, with the rest being refurbished Muggle lamps, but also increases customer loyalty. Customers will need to visit the store periodically, and once inside, they may find it hard to resist buying other products impulsively. This strategy is akin to selling razors to promote blade sales or cameras to sell film. Similarly, products like the magic gramophone follow this model. Depending on the style, a phonograph might be priced at only 3 to 5 galleons, but records with stored music and various light and shadow effects can be sold for 10 sickles or more. When customers tire of their current music, they will need to purchase new records. In the wizarding world, there are singers, and Anduin is even considering collaborating with them to produce special music records. Perhaps influenced by Vivienne, Anduin's business acumen has significantly developed during this period, and he is on his way to becoming a successful capitalist. After more than 10 days of rethinking his product strategy, Anduin successfully produced a batch of new products. He then took these new items, along with the improved multi-version humanoid target, to the Ministry of Magic. He also brought along the equipment produced during this period. While delivering the equipment, he conducted a risk assessment of the products. This trip went smoothly. Anduin delivered all the equipment without any issues and received the follow-up payment, which made him marvel once again at the wealth and power of the Ministry of Magic. The risk assessment was straightforward, as he had previously informed Minister Bodno, so the relevant departments were aware of his visit and the products he brought were not inherently dangerous. During this period, Anduin discovered something interesting. The hazard assessment was conducted by officials from the Department of Magical Accidents and Catastrophes and the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. The former assessed the danger, while the latter evaluated whether the products violated any laws. To his surprise, Anduin found that the assessor from the Department of Magical Law Enforcement was none other than Arthur. End of this chapter. Chapter 325. The light in this store is almost bursting out. The so-called evaluation is akin to a vegetable buyer asking whether the vegetables are fresh. This realization made Anduin feel more at ease about transforming Muggle items. It was simply a natural umbrella, a wise decision. After completing the product rating, Anduin returned to the store and rearranged the storefront. This time, he had so many products that the original 30 square meter space couldn't accommodate them all. After all, there were dozens of accessories derived from the defense talisman alone. Consequently, Anduin had to expand the front store space to more than 50 square meters. Following Vivienne's suggestion, he arranged the shelves according to the function of the goods. The current shelves were no longer simple display racks. Instead, they resembled those in a jewelry store, with various glass cabinets showcasing the jewelry products, each lined with high-end flannelette. Lamps, gramophones, music boxes, clocks, and other products were displayed in separate cabinets, illuminated from all angles to enhance their exquisite beauty. Under Vivienne's strong request, Anduin also showcased the magic mahjong and the matching magic mahjong table. Thus, Anduin's alchemy shop reopened after a thorough renovation. He continued to employ Vivienne, asking her to help with sales in the store for a period. With her persuasive skills, it would be a waste not to utilize her for selling products. Anduin promised her a 10% sales commission and also enlisted Cheeky and Hog to assist. Although he said it was to help, Anduin wanted Cheeky to learn sales from Vivienne and Hog to learn how to manage accounts. With school starting in half a month, Anduin would have to stay at Hogwarts for a while before he could return, leaving the store in the care of Cheeky and Hog. During this period, Cheeky's surveillance of Azalea continued, but there was no significant progress. The 3 pairs of tactical leather boots remained together and did not disperse. Azalea's daily activities were quite regular. She worked at the Ministry of Magic during the day and returned to her home in Godric's Hollow at night. She had no spouse, no lovers, and even few friends, living a life akin to a Puritan. This discovery made Anduin more certain that something was amiss. If there was no progress now, it might just be a matter of time. He asked Cheeky to install a highly concealed magic monitor outside Azalea's house. This would facilitate remote monitoring and real-time tracking when there were changes, saving Cheeky from having to stand guard all night. Not long after Anduin's shop was refurbished and reopened, it attracted the attention of a lady wandering in Diagon Alley. This young woman had a handsome appearance, a Chinese face, and wore a slim cloak, resembling an Auror working in the Ministry of Magic. Mavis, it's been a long time. The signboard potion I bought last time was not bad, Anduin's neighbor, Miss Primpernel, said as she worked on the signboard at the door. She happened to see the woman and greeted her with a smile. Hello, Miss Primpernel. The previous potion worked well, and the acne I developed from staying up late and working overtime has disappeared. Mavis replied politely to the owner of the beauty shop. Then why don't you come to my store again? Recently, I have released a new product. The whitening effect is first class, and it can also relieve fatigue. You see, the dark circles under your eyes have become darker after working so hard in the Ministry of Magic, Pimpernel suggested enthusiastically. The female Auror had a lot of money, so she left the rosy-faced woman to promote her new products. Really? May Weissy said, intrigued. However, her attention was soon drawn to the shop next door. Listen to me first. Do you know what's going on with the shop next to you? I came by a few days ago, and the door wasn't open yet. When Pimpernel heard her mention the shop next to his house, he immediately adopted a furtive expression. He leaned in close to her ear and whispered mysteriously, "You're talking about that alchemy business. It's run by a rich second-generation heir. I guess it's just for fun. I knew its owner a few years ago. Back then, he asked me about the business. Not long after, he sold the shop. But after that guy bought the shop, he has been living in seclusion with a big, annoying dog. He mentioned wanting to open an alchemy shop, but he didn't do anything for several years. Guess what? The shop suddenly opened half a month ago. But if you open a shop, you must at least have something to sell. His shop had only a few broken props. Not only did they look shabby, but the prices were also ridiculously high. In the end, it closed after just one day. The boss probably realized his level wasn't good enough." Pimpernel gestured to Mavis with an exaggerated expression, looking like a market gossip. Hearing Pimpernel's explanation, May Weissy couldn't help but frown. She knew about this shop. It was the alchemy company of the battle hero Anduin, and it was the equipment supplier for the Ministry of Magic. She had been there when Anduin was demonstrating the equipment and had been very interested in several of the props. However, every time she visited, the store was always closed, and she couldn't buy anything. Moreover, the shop didn't look like it was going to close down. After thinking about it, May Weissy looked at Pimpernel suspiciously. "No, listen to me first. You mean this store has closed down? But look at the lights and decorations inside the store. It's a lively scene." After hearing what May Weissy said, Pimpernel turned her head with some doubts. She had just come out and hadn't paid attention to the alchemy business next door. But this look almost made Pimpernel's eyeballs pop out. The alchemy shop was brightly lit in broad daylight, and the window was filled with all kinds of gorgeous objects she had never seen before. In the sky above, there were even several birds made of light flying around, and many balls of light floated up and down like elves. Merlin's beard. What's going on with this store? Mavis, you have to believe me, it didn't have so many fancy things a few days ago, Pimpernel said, looking stunned and immediately turning to May Weissy for validation. But May Weissy looked at her with an even stranger expression. "Don't you know your neighbor next door? The light in this shop is almost spilling out. Don't be jealous of other people's business." Mavis shrugged at Pimpernel, then passed him and walked straight into Anduin's alchemy shop. End of this chapter. Chapter 326. Selling, asking for monthly ticket recommendations. As soon as May Weissy pushed open the door of the shop, a swallow made of milky white light bloomed towards her, causing her to lean back in fright. "Welcome." Vivienne greeted May Weissy with a sweet smile, deliberately pinching her mouth. "Hi, beauty, how can I help you?" Hearing Vivienne's greeting, it wasn't May Weissy who reacted first, but Anduin and Hog, who were sitting at the counter. They shivered for no reason. It was too awkward. I'll just take a look," May Weissy said, a little at a loss, as she looked at Vivienne approaching her. "Good girl, just take a look. Today is the grand opening ceremony of our Silver Flash Trading Company. All magic and alchemy items are enjoying a 9.5% discount," Vivienne said professionally. After finishing her pitch, she moved aside thoughtfully to give May Weissy a better view of the shop. At this time, May Weissy had the chance to carefully look around the entire shop. Right in front of her were several conspicuous cabinets displaying rather exquisite phonographs, clocks, lamps, and other props. The soft light projected from above made these items shine extraordinarily. Among them, a lamp in the shape of a griffin was constantly spitting out light birds, which floated above the room. On the side of the phonograph, there were traces of hidden magic lines, giving it a high-end feel. A melodious sound of music played from it, and on the vinyl record in the center of the phonograph, the lights and shadows of a few small animals appeared. They constantly rotated with the record, running on the film as much as possible. To her left, there was a row of vertical glass cabinets containing many ornaments of different shapes, including pendants, bracelets, belts, and brooches, all placed on velvet slopes. Mei Weiqi could roughly recognize that these cabinets were arranged according to style. Some were cute, some professional, and some delicate and luxurious. On her right were various small props, such as gloves, pocket watches, clocks, and music boxes. Across the standing cabinets directly in front, there were a large number of lamps, gramophones, and human-shaped targets of various shapes. There was even a table with a strange shape, with neat rows of squares stacked on it. Listen to me first, Mei Weiqi said after a while, realizing something was wrong. She couldn't help but ask her doubts. Shouldn't this be a company that specializes in tactical equipment? Why are there all these gaudy things? After observing the equipment displayed by Anduin that day, she was very interested, especially in the protective gloves, humanoid targets, and tactical vests. She had come specifically to buy some to supplement her strength, but no matter how hard she looked, she couldn't see any tactical equipment. "So you are from the Ministry of Magic," Vivienne said, understanding the identity of the other party. "Yes, I'm an Auror, and I've seen the equipment demonstrated by Mr. Wilson before, but these..." Mei Weiqi was dazzled by the props in front of her and hesitated to speak. "You read that right. This is indeed a tactical equipment store. But as an alchemy workshop, we don't just sell equipment. We also have many excellent civilian products, and we have packaged those tactical equipment," Vivienne explained, guiding Mei Weiqi to the side of the cabinet. "In these cabinets are the original messenger amulets and defense amulets, which have powerful magical effects. You can also choose your favorite jewelry style, with cute children's versions and simple adult versions. There is also an exclusive couples messaging talisman. Look at this pair of phoenix pendants," Vivienne said, pointing to a pair of beautifully crafted pendants. Vivienne proudly presented their flagship product. Not only is it crafted with excellent workmanship, but it also boasts a powerful communication effect. "Would you like a pair? Share it with your partner, and you will definitely feel the love. It only costs 32 galleons, and you can take home a pair of couple talismans." As she continued, Vivienne seemed to remember something. "Oh, by the way, since you're a member of the Ministry of Magic, you get a special discount. You only need to pay 26 galleons. I'm single," Mei Weiqi replied, staring in amazement at Vivienne's ability to speak so quickly. Then she realized something was off. "Wait, aren't the messenger talismans 12 galleons a pair? That's only 24 galleons. Why is the price higher with the package?" Despite her confusion, Mei Weiqi was captivated by the dazzling array of decorations in front of her. "It doesn't matter if you're single," Vivienne said, noticing Mei Weiqi's interest. "You can also check out this protective brooch, designed in an exquisite bird and snake style, specially made for ladies. It's only 12 galleons plus 15 shike. Don't miss this opportunity. It won't come again." Under Vivienne's relentless promotion, Mei Weiqi ended up purchasing 2 more ornaments made of defensive amulets, a brooch, and a string of pendants. Listen to me first. I'm here to buy protective gloves and humanoid targets," Mei Weiqi interjected, feeling she was losing control. If she continued listening to Vivienne, she might end up buying everything. "It's okay," Vivienne reassured her. "You can check out the next exhibition area. Your favorite humanoid targets are there." She guided Mei Weiqi to the showcase facing the door. "Look, there are 4 types of humanoid targets. They correspond to children, teenagers, adult home use, and professional versions, based on the power value limit. Which one do you need?" Vivienne quickly explained the differences between each version. "I want the home version for adults. My spell power shouldn't exceed 200 points, Mei Weiqi replied, satisfied this time. "Great, since you have some budget left, why not look at these magic gramophones next to you? The music is beautiful, and we now have a 4-season version of the record, each containing 10 seasonal songs. Plus, there's a buy 3, get 1 free offer," Vivienne continued. Mei Weiqi glanced at the gramophone in front of her. A few magical figures in padded jackets were skating joyfully along the record, which seemed to be the winter version. "Wait a minute," Mei Weiqi said, suddenly noticing something. "Why does this gramophone look so familiar? Could it be modified from Muggle items?" She stared at it for a while, realizing the issue. Having been abandoned by her parents and raised in an orphanage, she was quite familiar with the Muggle world and occasionally participated in Muggle communities. She immediately recognized the problem with the props. End of this chapter. Chapter 327, Returning to School. Don't worry, this is an alchemy product certified by the Ministry of Magic. Its shape may resemble Muggle items, but look, it has our firm's coat of arms on it. There's absolutely no problem, Vivian assured confidently, spotting a knowledgeable customer. Is that so? Mayweiss pondered for a moment. As a regular alchemy firm, it seemed unlikely they would engage in illegal activities like abusing magic on Muggle items. Perhaps they just borrowed the shape of Muggle items. Half an hour later, Mayweiss walked out of Anduin's shop with a trace of confusion in her eyes. I really thought I was just here to buy equipment, she murmured, looking at the large box of goods in her hands. She recalled her experience in the store, feeling as if she had been in a different world. The shop was indeed wonderful. Besides the few pieces of equipment she initially intended to buy, she now had 2 more accessories, a magic phonograph, 4 records, a magic decorative lamp, and a magic mechanical clock. The store's staff were peculiar too, a persuasive young saleswoman and a well-dressed house elf. Most bizarrely, the cashier was a husky, proficiently operating the register without any sense of disobedience. With this surreal experience, Mayweiss left Diagon Alley. Her experience was not unique. Many customers felt similarly enchanted by Anduin's firm. The redesigned and improved store saw a constant stream of customers, many of whom bought products despite the high prices. While powerful alchemy equipment was expensive, smaller items like magic lamps and music boxes were more affordable. Anduin calculated that, excluding non-civilian alchemy equipment, his turnover from selling alchemy products alone was thousands of galleons. Even without the big-ticket items, he still made a profit of several hundred galleons. Although the initial rush was likely due to impulsive purchases, he estimated that average daily sales would stabilize at tens of galleons, leading to thousands of galleons in annual revenue. Including tactical equipment and Ministry of Magic orders, an annual income of 10,000 galleons was within reach. Satisfied with these prospects, Anduin nodded. With such funds, many of his ideas could be realized. However, the increased product range also meant higher production pressure. Not all civilian products could be made in the Muggle world, so Anduin built another magic lathe before school started, specifically for processing civilian alchemy products. Time flew by, and it was soon time to return to Hogwarts. With the start of the school year, the number of customers would decrease. Anduin entrusted the firm to Chi-Chi, confident in her abilities, while Hog accompanied him back to school to monitor the situation. He also instructed Chi-Chi to keep a close watch on Azalea, suspecting there was more to her identity. Returning to Hogwarts, Anduin found that after the 6th grade, studies were not as intense unless preparing for the final exams and the Newt certificate. Students could even apply to leave school early for practice and development. As he entered his 7th year, Anduin felt a mix of anticipation and readiness for the challenges ahead. It didn't really matter whether people stayed at the academy or not. Anduin hadn't planned to stay at Hogwarts for long anyway. He had business to attend to outside the school, and now that he had a better financial foundation, he could also pursue more costly scientific research and experiments. However, he remembered his promise to Snape to take care of Slytherin, so he had to keep an eye on the house during the first few months of the school year. After a summer vacation, the students would be lax, and some would definitely slack off. He intended to spend some time rectifying their discipline before applying to leave the school. Upon returning to Hogwarts, Anduin resumed his role as the stern-faced, serious-looking head of Slytherin House. After the previous school year, his reputation had spread to the other houses as well. Now, when everyone saw him, they felt a sense of awe, except for Tonks, who always maintained her detached personality. In the first month after returning to the academy, there were indeed many cases of laxity within Slytherin. Anduin responded with another round of strict discipline, pulling their minds back from vacation mode. By the 2nd month, the atmosphere in the house had finally returned to normal, and incidents of rule-breaking had greatly reduced. By the 3rd month, Even the first-year students had developed good school habits, and violations of discipline had almost disappeared. At this point, Anduin was ready to apply for early leave from the school. He wrote a special application form and then sought out his head of house, Snape. "Do you really think you understand all the knowledge in the school? Or are you so arrogant that you don't care about the school at all?" Snape was furious when he saw Anduin's application letter and spared no effort in ridiculing him. In truth, Snape was concerned that Slytherin, under Anduin's management, had shown an invincible momentum in terms of mental outlook and academic performance. Snape doubted even he could achieve such results. Naturally, he objected to Anduin's request to leave school early. Anduin understood Snape's concerns just by looking at his attitude. Snape was afraid that Slytherin would not be able to maintain its current status without him and wanted Anduin to continue as a free resource. "Don't worry, Headmaster. Even if I don't stay in the academy, Slytherin will be fine. You must know that even in normal times, I often disappear from their sight. They behave well regardless," Anduin reassured him in a gentle tone, though it felt more like a teacher comforting an exasperated student. "But," Snape began, wanting to say more, but he couldn't find the words to persuade Anduin. "Professor Snape," Anduin smiled, "I'm just applying for permission to leave school early. That doesn't mean I'm leaving Hogwarts immediately." End of this chapter. "As possible," Snape retorted, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "I have more important matters to attend to than dealing with your antics." Anduin chuckled, pocketing the signed application. "Thank you, Professor. I appreciate your understanding." Snape merely grunted in response, turning his attention back to the potions he was brewing. Anduin took that as his cue to leave, making his way out of the dimly lit office and into the bustling corridors of Hogwarts. As he walked, Anduin couldn't help but reflect on the conversation. Despite Snape's gruff exterior, there was a certain level of respect between them. Snape, after all, was a master of his craft, and Anduin had always admired that about him. The halls of Hogwarts were alive with the chatter of students, the clinking of armor from the moving suits, and the occasional burst of laughter. Anduin navigated through the crowd, his mind already planning his next steps. The certificate in his pocket was more than just a piece of paper. It was a key to greater freedom and opportunities. He made his way to the Great Hall, where the long tables were filled with students enjoying their meals. The enchanted ceiling above mirrored the clear blue sky outside, adding to the grandeur of the room. Anduin spotted his friends and made his way over to them. "Hey, Anduin, how did it go with Snape?" one of his friends asked, looking up from their plate. "Surprisingly well," Anduin replied with a grin. "I got the approval. Now I can come and go as I please." "That's great news," another friend exclaimed. "So what's the plan now?" Anduin leaned in, lowering his voice. "I have a few business matters to attend to outside the school, but don't worry, I'll be back in time for classes and, of course, to help Slytherin win the House Cup again." His friends nodded, understanding the delicate balance Anduin had to maintain between his responsibilities inside and outside of Hogwarts. They knew he was ambitious and driven, qualities that had earned him both admiration and envy among his peers. As the conversation shifted to lighter topics, Anduin allowed himself a moment of relaxation. The path he had chosen was not an easy one, but it was one he was determined to follow. With the support of his friends and the newfound freedom granted by the certificate, he felt more confident than ever in his ability to succeed. The rest of the day passed in a blur of classes and study sessions. By the time evening fell, Anduin was back in his dormitory, preparing for his first trip outside the school with his new privileges. He packed a small bag with essentials and double-checked the certificate, ensuring it was safely tucked away. As he lay in bed that night, Anduin's mind raced with possibilities. The world outside Hogwarts was vast and full of opportunities, and he was ready to seize them. With a final glance at the certificate, he closed his eyes, a sense of excitement and anticipation filling him. Tomorrow would mark the beginning of a new chapter in his life, one where he could truly spread his wings and explore the limits of his potential. Anduin drifted off to sleep with a smile on his face, ready to embrace whatever challenges and adventures lay ahead. Snape snorted again, giving Anduin a suspicious look. By the way, Professor, can I ask you something? Anduin suddenly remembered something and asked casually. Just say it. Don't waste my time, Snape replied, his face still stern. Do you know Azalea Roll? She's a schoolgirl a year younger than you, Anduin asked, recalling that this suspicious woman seemed to be a classmate of Snape's. Azalea, the one who is very beautiful. Snape tilted his head, trying to remember. Yes, I think I recall someone like that. I'm glad you remember her. What kind of person was she in your impression? Anduin probed further. Was she from the same house as me? I don't know the details. I just remember she was quite popular. That might be a privilege of being beautiful. Why do you ask? Snape asked, puzzled. It's nothing. I just care about my friend, Anduin said dismissively. Then he thought of something else and asked, do you remember what kind of wand she used? Wand? Snape found Anduin's question strange, but tried to recall. How would I know what kind of wand she had? I just remember it seemed to be black, either blackthorn wood or black walnut. Anduin frowned at this answer. Thank you, Professor. You've helped me answer a very important question. Snape glanced at him inexplicably, then seemed to think of something. With a reluctant expression, he pulled out a small box from the drawer and pushed it in front of Anduin. Here you are. As head of Slytherin, this is your reward for helping the house, so no one can say I'm unreasonable. Oh, why did Professor Snape suddenly become so generous? Anduin looked at the small box in surprise and opened it. Inside lay a bottle of light golden potion. Even Anduin, who tried to remain calm, couldn't help but widen his eyes and feel his pupils contract. The potion was too familiar to him. It was Felix Felicis, a potion he had once owned. He had paid for the materials and tried to make it himself, but only had a small amount left. Did the professor take the wrong medicine today, or did his conscience suddenly awaken? To give such a significant gift and still act so grumpy. Anduin stared at the potion bottle for a moment, as if he had discovered something, and then carefully observed it again to be sure. What? Haven't you seen anything good before? This kind of common stuff is worth your time in a daze? Snape said, a trace of pride in his voice, feeling a bit smug. After confirming his thoughts, Anduin closed the small box silently and looked at Snape solemnly. Thank you for your gift, Professor. This is truly an amazing gift. End of this chapter. Chapter 329. Kiki Saw a Dragon. After Anduin left the potions office, he carried the box Snape had given him, deep in thought. He was surprised by Snape's generosity in giving him a bottle of Felix Felicis, but he also noticed something intriguing. The crystal bottle containing the Felix Felicis was identical to the one that held the Buffy Brain Refreshing Potion he received in his first year. It was a specially made, exclusive crystal bottle. There's no doubt about it. Snape was the one who gave me the potion through Headmaster Dumbledore a few years ago. The headmaster did mention having a spy close to the Dark Lord back then, Anduin mused. But why did he give me the potion? Was it just because I saved Harry once? Is there something special about his relationship with the Potter family? Anduin pondered further. Judging from Sirius' attitude towards Snape, the relationship between James and Snape must have been strained. Could it be? He had a special relationship with Lily? Realizing that Snape was his benefactor left Anduin feeling touched. The Buffy Brain Refreshing Potion had been a significant breakthrough for him, enhancing his foundation and growth. He had always wondered about the identity of this mysterious benefactor, never expecting it to be Snape, who had always treated him with disdain. It seems you have many secrets, Dean Snape. You always wear that cynical mask, but what are you hiding? Anduin murmured to himself. He sighed softly, knowing it wasn't the time to dwell on these thoughts. When Anduin returned to his dormitory, he found Kiki there, looking disheveled. Her combat uniform and tactical vest were covered in grass and dirt. What's going on, Kiki? Anduin asked, concerned. My lord, Kiki breathed a sigh of relief upon seeing Anduin. Something happened at the Ministry of Magic. I followed Azalea Roll today and discovered something important. I thought it was crucial to report it to you immediately. All right, come sit down and tell me everything, Anduin said, leading Kiki to a seat and pouring her a glass of water. Kiki, clearly exhausted, grabbed the water glass and drank it down in one gulp. She had been waiting for a while, but didn't dare touch anything in Anduin's room without his permission. Ahem, it's like this. Last night, Azalea didn't return to her home in Godric's Hollow on time. I sensed something was wrong and decided to follow her, Kiki began, but she choked on the water in her haste to report. It's okay, Kiki. Take your time and tell me everything in detail. What happened to her? Anduin reassured her, patting her back to help her calm down. It's not Azalea who experienced any changes, but something happened at the Ministry of Magic, Kiki explained. What happened? Anduin asked, frowning. A dragon, my lord. I saw a dragon, Kiki said, her agitation making her words come out in a rush. Slow down. Remember what I taught you? The main points of the report. The time, the person, the location, and the process of what happened. Now start from the beginning, Anduin instructed, correcting her. Sorry, my lord. I was a bit nervous, Kiki apologized, taking a deep breath. I started tracking around 11 o'clock last night. According to the tracker, Azalea. Kiki was still at the Ministry of Magic. She didn't know what had happened there, but she didn't get off work on time. Kiki thought this might be the abnormal situation Anduin had mentioned, so she decided to wait outside the ministry. Anduin nodded in understanding and motioned for her to continue. After waiting for more than an hour, the target's position changed, and she left the Ministry of Magic. Kiki guessed that she either used the flu network or apparated away. To determine her location, Kiki checked the tracker and found that the direction the target appeared in was not towards her home, so Kiki used apparition to follow her. The target moved a considerable distance westward, seemingly leaving the British Isles. Kiki had a hard time keeping up. When she finally got close, she found that the target was already on the west side of Ireland. Oh, they moved so far, even across national borders? Anduin remarked. However, the jurisdiction of the British Ministry of Magic is different from that of the Muggle world. It manages the entire island of Ireland, not just Northern Ireland. After chasing for such a long distance, can your magic support you? Anduin asked, concerned about Kiki's well-being. Don't worry, the magic power source provided by the tactical vest is very helpful. I was hiding most of the time, so I didn't waste much magic power except for traveling, Kiki replied, touched by Anduin's concern. That's good. In the future, make sure to do what you can and don't put yourself in unnecessary danger, Anduin advised. Yes, my lord, Kiki nodded solemnly and continued. It was past midnight when I approached the target. At that time, I only knew she was somewhere in the west of Ireland, but I didn't know the exact location. When I saw Azalea from a distance, she was with a group of wizards from the Ministry of Magic. They were dressed in various styles, but most of them were aurors in long trench coats. By the way, the female auror who came to the shop on opening day was among them. How many people were there? Anduin asked curiously. There were probably dozens of aurors and more than a dozen other Ministry of Magic employees, Kiki recalled. But I can be sure that Azalea and the others arrived later because she was following someone who looked like a Ministry of Magic official. The group of ministry staff led by him seemed out of breath and very tired, indicating they had just arrived not long ago. End of this chapter. Chapter 330, The Smuggling Scene. Besides the people from the Ministry of Magic, was there anyone else? Anduin asked, suddenly recalling the dragon Kiki had mentioned earlier. Yes, there were others at the scene. About 6 or 7 people were handcuffed by the Ministry of Magic with magical restraints, and there were several dragons there too. Kiki's eyes sparkled with excitement as she recounted the event. She had never seen a dragon in person before. More than one dragon. Tell me about them. How many were there? What were their conditions, colors, sizes, and so on? Anduin inquired, knowing that Kiki might not yet be familiar with magical creatures. Yes, my lord. Kiki counted 5 dragons in total. They were very large, about 5 or 6 meters long, and 2 meters high when lying on the ground. They all seemed to be of the same species, covered in smooth, brassy scales, with fangs, a black ridge on their backs, and yellowish horns on their heads, Kiki described. When Kiki found them, they were tightly bound by iron chains. 2 of them were either unconscious or dead, while the other 3 were struggling but controlled by the aurors. After Azalea and the others arrived, they took over from the aurors and cast spells to make the dragons fall asleep. Listening to Kiki's description, Anduin quickly deduced that the dragons were Peruvian vipertooths. Although not the largest of dragons, they were still very dangerous due to their highly toxic fangs. There were even rumors that dragonpox originated from this species, a fact Anduin knew to be true from records in his metal magic book. The dragonpox curse required the saliva and teeth of the Peruvian vipertooth as ingredients. However, Anduin was puzzled. The Peruvian vipertooth's natural habitat was in the Americas, specifically named after its discovery in Peru. How had these dragons ended up in the UK? Were they smuggled? And if so, how had the smugglers transported them such a long distance? Shaking his head to clear his thoughts, Anduin realized he needed more information. He looked up at Cheeky. "Did you find anything else at the scene?" "My lord." When Cheeky arrived, she noticed many signs of a battle. The area was blocked by various jammers. Azalea and the Ministry of Magic wizards who arrived later seemed to have come on foot. "The Aurors were all using our equipment. They seemed to like it very much," Cheeky said proudly. Anduin nodded. The area covered by the anti-apparition disruptor would prevent apparating, but house elves like Cheeky could come and go freely. "Besides the dragons, were there any other notable findings?" Anduin asked. "Yes, my lord. Apart from the dragons, there were only the wizards who had been handcuffed." Cheeky noticed that their clothes were different from those of British wizards. Cheeky added, "Oh, how so?" Anduin raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Their clothes were not as formal as ours. Both their shirts and coats were very loose, and the colors were much brighter, unlike our mostly plain-colored attire," Cheeky explained. "It seems they are indeed smugglers from America," Anduin concluded. Anduin nodded and then looked at Cheeky. "What happened after that?" Afterwards, most of the Aurors in Windbreakers took the prisoners away, leaving only a small number of Aurors and Azalea at the scene. These remaining Aurors tied the dragons to large wooden boards and then used a black flying horse to transport them away, Cheeky explained. "I followed them from a distance until they returned to the Ministry of Magic. This morning, I discovered that Azalea had returned home. I felt that this information was very important, so I came to Hogwarts to inform you." "So you spent the whole night on this matter?" Anduin asked, noticing how haggard Cheeky looked. "Thank you for your hard work. You should rest at Hogwarts for a day before going back." "Cheeky is not tired. I need to rush back to look after the shop. It hasn't opened yet, and it will affect your business," Cheeky said energetically. "Nonsense!" Anduin couldn't help but glare at her. "You can visit the shop anytime. Right now, you must rest. This is my order." "Yes, my lord," Cheeky replied, realizing she had upset Anduin. She lowered her head apprehensively. "Go to Hagrid's cabin and get some sleep. I'll bring you some food. Don't worry about Diagon Alley today. Go," Anduin urged her again when he saw she was still hesitating. After arranging for Cheeky to rest, Anduin finally had time to think about what had happened the previous night. It was clear that the Ministry of Magic had conducted a large-scale operation to catch smugglers. The goods they were smuggling included high-risk magical creatures like the Peruvian viper-toothed dragon, indicating a premeditated large-scale crime. The equipment the Ministry had urgently purchased from him was likely used to track and arrest these smugglers. However, smuggling is usually done as covertly as possible. The fact that the Ministry of Magic knew about the smuggling in advance and made preparations suggested that something had tipped them off before they purchased the equipment. What role do Azalea and the Silver Spear play in all of this? Anduin wondered aloud, lowering his head in thought. He had long suspected Azalea's identity. When he learned that her wand had been replaced and that she was using an aspen wand, which was standard in the Silver Spear Dueling Club, his suspicions grew even stronger. It was clear she was hiding her true strength. Given all this, Anduin couldn't believe that Azalea had nothing to do with the Silver Spear, no matter what. End of this chapter. Chapter 331, The Intruder. Anduin had learned 2 years ago that the Silver Spear was involved in smuggling activities in the Forbidden Forest. Given the smuggling incident last night, it was hard not to connect the two events. If Azalea was indeed part of the Silver Spear and they were behind the smuggling, why hadn't she reported it beforehand? Her motives for joining the Ministry of Magic were certainly suspect. She might be a spy planted within the ministry. The silver spear had never extended its reach into the British wizarding world before. The current state of the British wizarding community could be described as an iron fortress, so why were they causing trouble now? Anduin noted all these doubts, but there were still too few clues. Moreover, this organization had not directly provoked him so far. Anduin's approach was more precautionary. He didn't want to delve too deeply into it. After all, the Ministry of Magic was responsible for such matters. The Silver Spear was active throughout Europe, and Anduin didn't want to provoke such a transnational organization unless they obstructed his path. After some thought, Anduin decided to wait and see. He had a lot of research to conduct, and his business was just getting on track, with many matters still needing attention. However, while Anduin didn't want to provoke others, it seemed others had different plans. In the middle of the night, Anduin was abruptly awakened. The alarm on his body signaled that someone was invading his home in Diagon Alley. Reacting swiftly, Anduin got out of bed and retrieved a set of small monitors from his space ring. He had installed magical monitoring devices inside and outside number 277 Diagon Alley. If someone triggered the alarm, he would be able to see everything happening on the scene and remotely control the protective facilities in the house. I set this up just in case, but I didn't expect someone would actually dare to disturb my rest, Anduin muttered angrily. Cheeky happened to be away today, so he had to handle the situation alone. If the intruder discovered his secrets, he wouldn't hesitate to chase them down overnight. After turning on the monitor, the picture appeared quickly. However, because it was a miniature version, there was only one screen, and he had to switch views manually. The distance and the interference of protective magic at Hogwarts made the picture unclear, so Anduin increased the output of his magic power to stabilize the image. After carefully observing each room, he found no signs of a break-in. Thinking for a moment, Anduin switched the view to the outside. He judged that the intruder had not entered the house yet, as the outer protection was also very strong. After continuously switching the monitors from all angles around and on the roof, Anduin finally spotted the intruder. In the shadow of the alley opposite the main entrance of the house, he could vaguely see a cloaked figure quietly watching the house, as if waiting for something. Just as Anduin was puzzled by this, the figure acted. The intruder used magic to control a small brick, making it float into the air before quickly hurling it at the third-floor window. The force was considerable, but the intruder didn't seem concerned about the noise, likely having cast a silencing spell to conceal the surrounding environment. After the brick hit the window, the siren on Anduin's body alerted him once again. However, the brick didn't break the window glass. It merely shattered and flew backward as if it had struck a steel plate. This demonstrated the strength of the opponent. Observing this, the intruder immediately concealed himself more deeply and refrained from further movement, opting instead to quietly observe the house. "Are you testing? Quite cautious," Anduin thought, smiling coldly. "You must have tried before and discovered that neither magical perception nor naked-eye observation can penetrate the house." The intruder's caution persisted. He made several more attempts, throwing bricks and stones at the windows on the second, third, and even first floors. The main reason for his persistence was the house's unusual nature. He couldn't see inside with the naked eye, couldn't hear any movement, and his magical senses couldn't penetrate it. The house's surface caused his magic to slide away naturally, like water off an iron bucket. This sense of facing the unknown made him uneasy, so he continued his tests. After half an hour, the intruder realized he had been outwitted by the air. He sighed in relief and shook his head, amused at his own suspicion. Convinced that there was no one inside, he decided to proceed. However, to be safe, he cast an illusion spell on himself before carefully approaching the front door. "Allahu hole is open," he muttered, drawing his wand and casting an unlocking spell on the lock. When the portal remained unmoved, he wasn't deterred. "It doesn't matter," he thought. "There are other ways. Worst case, I'll break the door and repair it afterward." He had already cast a spell around the area to prevent attracting attention with loud noises. "Bone to pieces," he incanted, casting a shattering curse at the gate. A loud bang followed, but the door didn't shatter. Instead, bright and conspicuous magical lines appeared on it. Sensing danger, the intruder instinctively jumped sideways. The door, now revealing its magic patterns, ejected a powerful shockwave that struck the spot where he had been standing. "That was close," the intruder gasped, wiping cold sweat from his forehead. "What kind of door is this? Who would make their gate like this?" The unlocking spell had failed, and the shattering curse had rebounded. What should I do? Is it impossible to get in? Determined, he decided to try another method. Let's use the transfiguration curse, he thought. He cast the spell on the gate, but his magic felt like it was sinking into the sea, with no effect. He tried various other methods, burning with a flame spell, freezing with a freezing spell, and even conjuring a sledgehammer to smash the door. Each attempt was futile, with the door's rebound force shaking him far away, but the door itself remained unscathed. End of this chapter. Chapter 332, The Fascinated Intruder. At this moment, Anduin, who had been observing the intruder's astonishing attempts from a distance, was left speechless. Why did this guy seem so clueless? Did he not realize he was fighting against a door? There was a window right next to him. After such a long struggle, the intruder's frustration was palpable. It was as if he was in a battle of wills with the door, his methods becoming increasingly intense and his spells more ruthless. Anduin knew this couldn't continue. The intruder didn't seem very smart, and if he resorted to using black magic, it could be troublesome. The last thing Anduin wanted was for his house to be set ablaze by fierce flames. Should I help him? He seems determined to get in and probably won't give up until he does, Anduin pondered. He decided to open a back door for the intruder. Taking out a controller from his pocket, he adjusted it slightly, lowering the defense strength of the main entrance by 2 levels. Meanwhile, the intruder outside Anduin's house was drenched in sweat from exhaustion. He had never encountered such an outrageous home defense system. Typically, continuous attacks on a protective magic circle would gradually weaken its strength due to the depletion of magic power. But today, he was learning something new. Not only did this defense not weaken, but it also counterattacked. Why don't you sell anti-theft equipment instead of doing alchemy? He muttered to himself, unaware that the magic power source of Anduin's defensive circle was connected to Muggle electricity, making it almost inexhaustible. Damn it, one last try. If this doesn't work, I'll have to resort to black magic. I refuse to believe that a corrosive spell can't pierce through. The intruder gritted his teeth and cast a Curse Stop spell at the portal. This time, his efforts paid off immediately. The magical aura on the gate weakened significantly. Overjoyed, he wondered if the universal cracking spell was the real solution, or if the defensive circle's magic power had finally diminished after his continuous attacks. Seeing hope, the intruder became excited and repeatedly used the universal cracking spell on the door. Each time, the magic pattern on the door grew dimmer. After 7 or 8 spells, the magic pattern finally disappeared. Satisfied, the intruder tentatively used an unlocking spell on the door lock, which opened in response. "Beautiful," he exclaimed, punching the air in excitement like a primary school student who had just finished his summer homework. Anduin, quietly observing from a distance, wiped a cold sweat from his brow. This guy was too foolish. Even after Anduin had significantly reduced the gate's defense, the intruder had used the weakest spell to open it. When the intruder used his wand to cast a spell, Anduin recognized him. It was Azalea, whom Anduin had always suspected. Her aspen wand was too distinctive to miss. Finally inside Anduin's store, Azalea, likely overwhelmed by her previous efforts, removed the cloak from her head. However, instead of revealing her beautiful face, she exposed a mask as white and flawless as ivory. The mask had no holes for eyes or nostrils, presenting a completely blank, flat surface without any markings. It looked like an oval white bowl, devoid of any facial features. As soon as Azalea entered the shop, she immediately closed the door behind her and cautiously leaned against the wall, quietly sensing the movement around her. After a moment of using her magic to scan the area, she confirmed that there were no living beings inside. Azalea then lit a fluorescent spell with her wand and looked around. To her surprise, the shop's interior had drastically changed since her last visit just over 3 months ago. The owner, Anduin, hadn't returned to Hogwarts for school, so why had the entire store's appearance transformed? The space inside was now larger, and the interior decoration and shelves were completely different. Seeing the unfamiliar environment, Azalea began to carefully explore. She didn't know where her target was placed, so she meticulously checked every shelf. She was soon captivated by the new products. Hey, how come there are so many new items in this alchemy shop, and all of them look amazing? She murmured to herself. This pendant is beautiful, and that one too. There are even couple models. Why didn't I see these last time? She continued to examine the items. This belt buckle looks so handsome. Is this also alchemy equipment? And what's this table with small squares on it? Some kind of talisman. Azalea's curiosity led her to a lamp. Is this a lamp? Should I turn it on and see? No, better not to startle anyone. She then noticed a small box. What is this little box? Let's open it and see. Oops. She was startled by the music that began to play from the music box. What the hell, it can automatically make a sound? It looks just like a prop from the Muggle world, she muttered, closing the music box in embarrassment. Despite the allure of the shop's new products, Azalea remembered her mission. She searched the entire store, opening all the cabinets and even the cash register, but couldn't find her target. With nothing found in the front of the store, Azalea turned her attention to the door leading to the inner room. She recalled that Anduin had previously taken out banned equipment from there. I wonder if this door is as heavily defended as the front one. Who would make their home like a fortress, she thought. Approaching the door with some trepidation, she tentatively cast an unlocking spell. To her relief, the door opened without resistance. Ha! Azalea let out a long breath, feeling a mix of relief and amusement at her earlier paranoia. Who would have so many defensive measures in their own home, she mused. End of this chapter. Chapter 333, The Wizard in the Shadows. After entering the inner room, Azalea noticed that the structure had undergone considerable changes. At the far end of the previously empty room, there was now a human-shaped target. One side was filled with opaque cabinets, and there were 3 small compartments on the same side, each equipped with a floor-to-ceiling mirror and a phonograph. Moreover, the cubicles were equipped with soundproof charms. Azalea walked into one of the cubicles and found that the surroundings had become much quieter. It seems that this place is for customers to try on accessories and listen to music. It's full of new ideas, she thought. The owner of this store seemed to have become much smarter in business. As if suddenly enlightened, Azalea actually listened to the music for a full 10 minutes in the cubicle. Anyone who didn't know her mission might have thought she was genuinely there to shop. After 10 minutes, she walked out of the cubicle contentedly. The civilian products in this alchemy firm were quite good, and the wonderful music had made her forget the passage of time. After a little relaxation, she remembered her mission and went straight to the row of lockers next to the cubicle. She carefully opened the doors one by one and searched earnestly. Azalea found several sets of tactical vests and defensive gloves stored in these lockers. Most of the lockers contained civilian-grade alchemy props. She did not disturb these items and tried to keep their positions as they were. Even if the internal furnishings were messed up due to rummaging, she restored them to their original state afterward. Finally, after opening a vertically locked locker, she found a metal safe that was half a person's height hidden inside. There was no combination lock plate on it, only a small handle. This must be it, Azalea thought, breathing a sigh of relief. Although the operation had been rough, she had finally found the target. Facing the safe, Azalea tried to use an unlocking spell, but there was no response. This was expected. Even the door had been difficult to enter, so the safe wouldn't be easy to open. If it could be opened casually, she would have suspected it was a trap. Azalea continued to try several attacking spells and even used multiple breaking spells, but they had no effect on the safe. Every time she cast a spell on the safe, a dense layer of magic lines appeared on its surface. Unlike the gate, the safe did not counterattack. Instead, it absorbed the spells, showing no signs of weakening. Why is it so difficult to deal with? The owner of this store should consider changing careers to selling safes. With such high-quality alchemy items, I even want to buy one, Azalea thought, complaining silently. She then took a new approach. Carefully placing her wand on the handle of the safe, she muttered a spell silently. Immediately, the safe reacted, and a cloud of turbid smoke began to bleed out from the position held by the wand. A conspicuous gap appeared on the safe, with obvious corrosion marks, as if metal had met aqua regia, and molten metal slowly flowed out. Finally, Azalea sighed. The process of casting the spell had only lasted a short time, but it had been strenuous. A hole the size of a ping-pong ball had been corroded on the safe, and the magic pattern on it dimmed due to the damage. "Arajo Cave is open," she incanted, and the corroded box door was driven open by a simple unlocking spell, revealing a bunch of jammers inside. "Very good," she said, satisfied with her progress. Azalea counted 5 anti-apparition jammers and 5 shielding jammers. There were more reserves than she had anticipated. With these, the follow-up actions should be less likely to be detected. She felt a surge of relief and quickly packed away all the equipment before closing the door. It's a pity that the items damaged by the corruption curse can't be repaired with the return to the original curse. The loss of the equipment might be discovered soon. It would have been better if I could have opened it, normally, to keep it hidden longer, she mused. However, maybe I can use transfiguration to restore the safe to its original state. This kind of equipment is banned from sale to all Aurors, and the Ministry of Magic won't be purchasing it anytime soon. Maybe it can be concealed for a while. Having made up her mind, Azalea swiftly waved her wand. The hole in the safe vanished, returning it to its undamaged appearance. To ensure the transfiguration lasted long enough, she even increased the input of her magic power. After casting the spell, she cleaned up all the smoke and corroded metal stains. Feeling more at ease, Azalea walked back to the shop's main area and leisurely wandered around. She adopted a shopping posture, carefully admiring her favorite accessories several times. She even took out a few records and listened to the music, but she made sure to restore everything to its original state afterward. Once she had finished her faux shopping, she meticulously cleaned up any traces of her intrusion and slowly exited the shop. After closing the door, she injected magic power into it to restore its defenses. Satisfied that everything was exactly as it had been, Azalea disappeared with an apparition. When she reappeared, she was back at her residence. Feeling relaxed, she was about to take off her mask when her magical perception sensed a faint danger approaching from behind. Instantly alert, Azalea sidestepped swiftly, drew her wand from her waist, and assumed a fighting stance, pointing her wand at the shadow in her living room. "Your reaction is too slow, Unicorn." A deep male voice emerged from the shadows. As the voice spoke, a wizard wearing a cloak stepped out of the darkness, holding a white aspen wand in his right hand. Recognizing the figure, Azalea let out a sigh of relief but did not lower her wand. Instead, she replied sharply, "I've told you many times, don't break into my house at will. Is your memory really that bad? Thunderbird?" End of this chapter. Chapter 334, The Thunderbird and the Unicorn. "Oh, of course, my memory is fine, but what you said is your business, and what I do is mine. Is there a problem?" The cloaked wizard responded contemptuously. He then removed the hood from his head, revealing a white mask devoid of facial features. He glanced at Azalea, who was still on guard in front of him. "You can't intimidate any strong man with such a posture. It only reveals the tension in your heart. If I wanted to attack you, you wouldn't have a chance to fight back." "And who gave you the guts to point your wand at me? Have you forgotten who is in charge of this branch?" Although this mysterious wizard did not show his facial features, his condescending aura was palpable. "You," Azalea whimpered angrily, slowly lowering her wand, albeit unwillingly. "Why did you come to me without authorization? What if someone finds out? Don't you know that the British Ministry of Magic has begun to suspect insiders?" Although Azalea put away her wand, she was still annoyed and complained. "Humph, do you think I wanted to come all the way here at night? It's not because I don't trust you. I just went to steal something and wasted so much time. I'm just a waste. I don't know what the headquarters was thinking, assigning you to me, thinking your identity would bring some convenience to the action, but it turned out to be counterproductive," the mysterious wizard retorted, his tone filled with resentment. "You still have the nerve to talk about me?" Azalea shot back harshly. Do you know where I went? It was the most prosperous business center in the British wizarding world, not some backwater. Do you know what I went through tonight? And don't blame me for your own mistakes. The reason you failed this time is not just your arrogance, but also your incompetent subordinates who were tracked down so easily. It's a common practice of the weak to make excuses for their own incompetence, the mysterious wizard said, his unseen eyes piercing Azalea's skin with their intensity. If you were more useful, you wouldn't be in the Ministry of Magic, still kept in the dark by your own people, unable to spread any useful news. Do you know how much we have lost this time? You have to take responsibility for the club's loss. Azalea became anxious at his words. Thunderbird, don't bully others too much. Every time you make a mistake, you blame others. When you succeed, you take all the credit. It's really shameless. She realized her folly as she spoke. Both of them wore masks, hiding their faces. And I did inform you beforehand that the Ministry of Magic has updated their equipment. I reported the adverse effects of these updates on our operations. If it weren't for your self-righteousness, the club wouldn't have suffered this loss. Also, the last time you acted, it was your people who slipped up early and were almost caught by the Aurors. If I hadn't covered for you, do you think you could have transported the goods out so easily? Enough! The mysterious wizard did not expect Azalea's reaction to be so strong and glanced at her in surprise. The past is in the past. I don't want to pursue any responsibility, but you must remember to serve the club wholeheartedly. Otherwise, the consequences will be dire, and I don't think I need to remind you again. After hearing the mysterious wizard's warning, Azalea fell silent, glaring at him through her mask with vicious eyes. Look at me like that again, the mysterious wizard said, resuming his condescending posture. In my perception, your every move is undisguised. The weak protesting against the strong will only bring misfortune upon themselves. This is my last warning to you. Hearing the wizard's blatant threats, Azalea felt a heavy pressure on her shoulders. A thin layer of cold sweat formed on her back. Where's the item? Have you got it? The mysterious wizard asked, finally getting down to business. Of course I have it. Do you think I would come back empty-handed? Azalea retorted, using harsh words to suppress the fear in her heart. She then took out 8 jammers from the interspatial bag she carried and handed them to the wizard. 4 anti-apparition jammers and 4 shielding jammers. The mysterious wizard took one of the jammers from Azalea's hand, examining it carefully before looking back at her. Is this thing really as effective as you claim? Didn't you experience their power just the day before yesterday? Azalea replied coldly, then elaborated. I asked those Aurors about the tactics they used. They set up several shielding jammers before the battle. The strength of the shielding spells can rival yours, and they won't be detected by your warning magic. And the more powerful ones are the anti-apparition disruptors. With them in place, your men can't escape at all. So, they have such methods. And the tracking technology they suddenly used, was that also brought by similar alchemical equipment? The mysterious wizard played with the metal rod in his hand, struggling to believe that this small device had caused him such significant losses. Yes, these are all products of Silver Lightning Company. Well, that's our nickname for it. Its full name is Silver Lightning Alchemy Company. Because of the equipment supplied by this company, most Aurors were equipped with tracking glasses a few months ago. Based on the clues left from the last operation and a large-scale carpet search, they finally locked onto the delivery location. When discussing business, Azalea maintained a remarkable level of restraint and composure. So that's why those fools suddenly became so perceptive. They relied on these external tools. Truly a pitiful bunch, the mysterious wizard sneered, his tone a mix of anger and genuine mockery. Azalea rolled her eyes in exasperation. What era is this? Are they still like those old-school wizards who rely solely on their wands for everything? End of this chapter. Chapter 335, The Arrogant Thunderbird. I have stolen these jammers back according to your instructions. You can use them. When you take action next time, with these jamming protections, you won't be caught so easily, Azalea said, stacking several jammers in front of the mysterious wizard. The wizard glanced at the jammers with disdain. I'm not interested in this kind of alchemy creation. Relying too much on alchemy items will only weaken your resolve. I advise you to use them sparingly. Just like the pair of leather boots you brought back last time, although they can temporarily increase your walking speed, that is not your own power. Don't get lost in it, because you are tempted. What do you mean? You asked me to steal these jammers. Now that I have, you're not going to use them. What if you get caught by the Ministry of Magic next time? You can't let your stubbornness jeopardize the club. Azalea retorted, thinking Thunderbird was being unreasonable. If he looked down on alchemy items so much, why was he still wearing a mask? Why not just throw it away? I don't use them myself, but that doesn't mean I won't give them to those who cooperate with the club. Keep these with you for now. I'll come to take them when I need them next. The mysterious wizard's voice buzzed through Azalea's house. One mouthful of rubbish. I don't know who is the real rubbish. Azalea's dislike for the wizard in front of her was almost palpable, especially since he dismissed the spoils she had spent an entire night acquiring. She regretted joining such an organization. She had never met a normal person here. They were all like old antiques. If it wasn't for... Azalea's thoughts trailed off, filled with regret and hatred, but outwardly she had to comply with Thunderbird. I can't stand you breaking into my house again and again. If it doesn't work, just store these jammers in your safe house first. When I was operating in the Ministry of Magic, I didn't even come home, Azalea said, clearly disgusted by others invading her private space. Oh, you don't have the right to negotiate terms. Thunderbird completely ignored her protest. Your job is to complete the tasks I assign to you. Who knows if this alchemist's rubbish will malfunction and destroy my safe house? So you're not worried about it ruining my house at all? Azalea fumed internally, but she knew she couldn't persuade the arrogant wizard in front of her, so she could only snort to express her dissatisfaction. By the way, Thunderbird glanced at the props in front of him and then looked up at Azalea. The Silver Flash Company you mentioned, its boss is that young alchemist, right? I remember you mentioned him. Yes, his name is Anduin Wilson. Although he is young, his products have been recognized by the Ministry of Magic. All kinds of alchemy equipment he creates have strong functions. Because of him, the overall strength of the Ministry of Magic has grown substantially. Azalea recalled the events of the night. In addition to the alchemy equipment, Anduin's ridiculously strong protective props had left a deep impression on her. These wastes that only know how to rely on foreign objects are no better than that. Thunderbird snorted coldly with disdain. These alchemy equipment are a bit troublesome. Although we have some now, if they continue to exist, they will definitely interfere with our follow-up actions. What do you want? Azalea couldn't help but ask, sensing something in his words. This alchemist, Anduin, can you find a way to get rid of him? It's not good to have him always interfering with our plans, Thunderbird said, his tone filled with cold determination. When Thunderbird spoke, his tone was filled with coldness and ruthlessness. What? Azalea could hardly believe her ears. He's just a minor wizard, and you attacked a child? Now that his equipment has been supplied to the Ministry of Magic, what good would killing him do? It's precisely because he's still young. Thunderbird's voice grew sharper. He has independently developed so many alchemical vices at such a young age. His talent must be extraordinary. If we leave him alone, what will happen if he continues to cooperate with the British Ministry of Magic? Don't forget, the island of Ireland is a crucial part of the club's business. We're not here to cause minor troubles. We plan to turn this place into an important transit point for the club. As for those existing devices, it's simple. Just find an opportunity to destroy them when you encounter aurors. The most troublesome thing is those jammers, and these so-called alchemical items have a shelf life, right? This is why I disdain these temporary solutions. Relying on them will only make people lose their self-judgment. When the equipment gradually fails, they will be even more helpless than before. Listening to Thunderbird's emotionless words, Azalea felt as if she had fallen into an ice cave. Could these people really trample on others' lives so easily for their own benefit? I advise you to abandon such thoughts. I forgot to tell you that Anduin is not only a very talented alchemist, but also a battle hero awarded by the Ministry of Magic. He is not weak. Don't underestimate him. Azalea shouted, knowing that such a title was unlikely to scare Thunderbird, but unable to help herself. Ha ha ha! Thunderbird laughed loudly, as if he had heard something amusing. Battle hero, you say? Thunderbird seemed to choke on his own laughter, repeating the words mockingly. After he finished, he laughed again, clearly entertained. Are you sure you're not joking with me? Thunderbird's faceless mask revealed his amusement. Everyone's energy is limited. How strong do you think a teenage wizard can be, even with excellent alchemical talent? And as for the so-called battle hero title, who knows what political purpose the Ministry of Magic had in issuing it? Even if he is a real battle hero, it just means he defeated a few dark wizards. It's laughable that you would bring that up. Actually, I would rather face a strong opponent than an embroidered pillow, Thunderbird sneered. End of this chapter. Chapter 336, Leaving School. Unfortunately, in the entire British wizarding world, almost all opponents worthy of my attention are at Hogwarts. The only one who can make me fear is Dumbledore, Thunderbird said with a sneer. In the Ministry of Magic, only Moody and Scrimgeour can be called masters. The rest of them are no better than children in front of me. Instead of worrying about me, you should worry about your colleagues. As Thunderbird laughed wildly, Azalea's heart grew colder. She had initially held a good impression of Silver Flash Trading Company in Anduin, but now it seemed they might be more ominous than she had thought. What are you going to do? Anduin is now cooperating with the Ministry of Magic, and he is still a student at Hogwarts. If you attack him, neither the Ministry of Magic nor Hogwarts will let it go, Azalea said, her expression turning grim. Don't worry, no one will go to great lengths for a dead person, Thunderbird replied indifferently, straightening his tall frame. As for what I am going to do, have you forgotten what I am best at? You don't have to worry about such things involving you. I don't trust you to handle this kind of thing. Despite his reassurances, Azalea was still in a panic. She didn't want to be killed because of this, nor did she want to see it happen, even indirectly. Yes, but I'm still worried. What if this matter affects the club's follow-up plan? Azalea's heart was in turmoil. She never thought she would be a fellow traveler with this lunatic, but now she was under his control with no room for resistance. No matter what you do, you are hesitant. It's just to solve a small problem. It won't waste much effort, Thunderbird said indifferently. Besides, this young alchemist is still at Hogwarts. If we want to deal with him, we have to wait until Christmas at least. It's still nearly a month away, right? It won't affect our box action. On the contrary, you should remember your own job and not meddle in things that are not your concern. After finishing, Thunderbird turned and walked out of the house. On his way out, something occurred to him, and he turned around. I'm going back to the headquarters soon. The box operation will be in charge of the infiltration troops under the Sphinx. If something special happens, remember to send him a message. What about the jammer? Don't you need to bring new equipment for this operation? Azalea asked quickly as she saw him about to leave. Someone will come to pick it up. You don't need to worry about this kind of thing. Thunderbird sneered at Azalea's flustered appearance before disappearing with a pop of apparition. This bastard, he doesn't pay attention to me at all. Let someone come to pick it up? Is this place going to be a temporary warehouse? Azalea gritted her teeth in hatred and couldn't help but pick up a glass, smashing it to the ground in a fit of anger. On the other side, Anduin, who had watched the entire process of Azalea's infiltration at Hogwarts, silently turned off the monitor in front of him. Azalea's strength is indeed impressive, especially the spell that broke the safe at the end. I've never seen it before. Is this some kind of secret black magic? Anduin mused. However, her behavior gives off a naive feeling. After sneaking into someone else's home, she still has the mind to do other things. It seems she hasn't done too many similar jobs. And she's obviously not good at alchemy, and maybe she doesn't even know spell skills very well. Otherwise, she could have broken through the magic patterns. After all, the magic patterns on my safe are not too difficult. In the end, she relied entirely on brute force and recklessness. Is this her own personal habit, or does it also represent the Silver Spear's behavior? Anduin pondered for a moment. Now it was basically clear. Anduin confirmed that Azalea was indeed connected to the smuggling case from the previous night. Observing the smuggled goods at her home, he deduced that she must have accomplices. However, he was puzzled by her actions. If she knew the Ministry of Magic had powerful tools like jammers, why did she wait until the smugglers were caught before stealing them? Was it overconfidence or something else? Anduin couldn't be sure. He had been setting these traps for a while now. But you stole equipment worth 1,000 galleons from me. As a creditor, I can't just ignore your actions. Let's see what you're really up to, Anduin thought, smiling coldly before getting back into bed. The next day, Anduin found Kiki, who had already rested. He told her about the events of the previous night and gave her some trackers, instructing her to monitor the jammers. After Kiki left, Anduin decided to take Hog out of Hogwarts. The school was running smoothly, and it made more sense to help out at the store, giving Kiki more time for surveillance. Upon returning to their home in Diagon Alley, Anduin noticed that Azalea's method of cleaning up traces was quite amateurish. It was clear that there were still signs left behind. However, Anduin didn't plan to expose her immediately. Azalea didn't seem like a leader. He was more curious about the mysterious organization behind her, the Silver Lance. His equipment had become entangled in this smuggling war, and he was unsure of the Silver Lance's stance towards him as an equipment supplier. Azalea's theft of the jammers indicated that he was now on their radar. Remembering the safe that Azalea had destroyed the previous night, Anduin wondered if he should deal with it. He decided to leave it as it was. Perhaps Azalea would return to check on it someday. With that thought, Anduin opened the shop as if nothing had happened. Hog quickly took his place at the cashier, eager to help. Assisting at the cashier had become one of his favorite activities. Anduin settled into a chair behind the counter, enjoying the comfortable life. Diagon Alley was bustling with people, as Christmas was only 20 days away, and many wizards were out shopping for gifts. Not long after Anduin opened the store, an unexpected customer walked in. End of this chapter. Chapter 337. Poor acting skills, Azalea? Anduin looked at the woman who walked into the shop in surprise. He didn't expect that she, who had just stolen from here yesterday, would have the guts to come over early the next morning. No wonder people say that criminal suspects always like to return to the scene of the crime. This is simply a wise saying. Azalea, who walked into the shop, felt even more struck by lightning. What did she see? Shouldn't Anduin be studying at Hogwarts now? Why did he come back to the store suddenly? This unexpected discovery even made her freeze at the door. The reason why Azalea wanted to come here was that the experience last night made her a little uncomfortable, especially after knowing that the Thunderbird was going to deal with the Silver Flash Trading Company. A trace of guilt rose in her heart. On the other hand, she liked many of the products sold here very much. When she came here in the early morning, she actually fell in love with a lot of accessories. At that time, she didn't dare to touch anything because she didn't want to damage the scene, but she could come here to buy them during the day. After all, it doesn't cost much. If she missed those favorite accessories, it would be troublesome if Thunderbird destroyed them someday. Azalea? Anduin called out, breaking her reverie. Ah? It took a while for Azalea to react to Anduin's shout, and then she responded blankly. What's wrong with you? Why are you standing there suddenly? Anduin asked with a curious expression, but at this moment he kept complaining in his heart. This girl is too unprofessional. Before, he just thought she was a bit silly, but now he could only describe her as stupid. Oh. Azalea finally came to her senses and quickly adjusted her face. Sorry, I always thought you were at Hogwarts. I suddenly saw you, Mr. Wilson, in Diagon Alley and didn't respond. Ah, that's right. After all, I still have a business outside of school. Now that I've managed to start a business, I can't help thinking about it when I'm in school, so I applied to leave school early. Speaking of which, you really have a connection with my store. The last time I met you here was not long after I opened. This time I just came out of Hogwarts, and I saw you again, Anduin said with a smile. Oh, so that's the case. That's really a coincidence. After listening to Anduin's words, cold sweat almost trickled down Azalea's back. In other words, if she had come a day later, she might have bumped into Anduin while sneaking in. By the way, your complexion doesn't look very good. Did you not have a good rest last night? Anduin asked, seemingly picking at a sore spot. Mentioning last night, Azalea was shocked again. That's true. I've been busy these days, and I'm really not in a good mood. Azalea felt that the smile on her face was extremely stiff now, but she could only bite the bullet and respond. The Ministry of Magic is busy. To be honest, it's better to come out and do business like me, Anduin said, following her lead. By the way, today doesn't seem to be the weekend. Don't you have to go to work at the Ministry of Magic? That's right. The Ministry of Magic has been working overtime for the past 2 days, and I stayed up all night before, so I can take a day off today, Azalea replied, this time more naturally. Really? Is there any job that needs to stay overnight? You guys won't go out to run field missions, right? Anduin asked, pretending to be curious. Azalea felt like she was going crazy now. Why did Anduin keep asking these things? Sorry, there are disciplines in the Ministry of Magic, and it's not convenient to talk about it, Azalea said, using the Ministry of Magic as an excuse to avoid further questions. Anduin gave her a look of understanding, and then said, I understand. You don't need to tell me the specific details. Anduin observed Azalea closely, noting her reaction to his equipment. How about it? It works, right? He asked, a hint of pride in his voice. Azalea wanted to roll her eyes and tell Anduin that it worked too well, to the point of being dangerous. But she restrained herself. Well, you should ask your colleagues at the Auror Command for more details. After all, I'm not a frontline combatant, she replied, forcing a smile that was becoming increasingly difficult to maintain. Fortunately, Anduin didn't press the issue further. Instead, he changed the topic. You don't seem to be in good condition. Why don't you take a look at the phonograph in my store? Sometimes a bit of music can relieve fatigue. We recently launched a new Christmas album, he suggested, pointing to where the gramophone was placed. Azalea breathed a sigh of relief. Oh, really? She said, grateful for the change in conversation. But I still want to look at the accessories first. She hadn't forgotten the jewelry she had been eyeing and headed straight to the display area. Okay, no problem. Please, take your time, Anduin said, accompanying her with a smile. As Azalea picked out a few pieces of jewelry with clear intent, Anduin couldn't help but think, isn't your behavior a bit too obvious? It's only your second visit, and you're already so precise in your choices. Azalea, however, was completely absorbed in admiring her selections. She quickly picked out several items and then moved to the phonograph area to browse the records. Is this the Christmas album you mentioned? Can I try it out? She asked. Her haste was driven by a desire to buy what she wanted quickly and leave before she could reveal any more of her intentions. But the sight of a new record piqued her interest, and she couldn't resist asking to try it. Anduin, noticing her familiarity with the store, squinted slightly, but responded enthusiastically. Want to try it out? No problem. You might not know this, but we have a special room for listening. You can also try on the accessories you selected earlier. It's right behind. Please follow me. Azalea, realizing she might have seemed too familiar with the store, quickly put on a surprised expression, as if she had just discovered this feature. Even Hog, who was sitting bored at the counter, noticed her awkward acting and couldn't help but sneeze in embarrassment. End of this chapter. Chapter 338, Revenge. After Azalea paid the bill and left, Anduin returned to sit next to Hog. Hog looked at Anduin with a strange expression. My lord, there was something off about that woman just now. Why didn't you expose her? Hog asked. Even you noticed? Anduin replied with a joking expression. Her psychological quality is quite average, to be honest. I'm very surprised why Silver Spear recruited someone like her. Is it because she can sneak into the Ministry of Magic with a clean identity, or is there another reason? What are you going to do next? Just quietly observe her from the side? Hog inquired, knowing Anduin's methods well. She came to steal things and is now considered half of our enemy. Why not arrest her straightforwardly? If you want to know something, just use legilimency or veritaserum on her. Anduin shook his head at Hog's suggestion. No, we can't act rashly now. Otherwise, it will be easy to expose our firepower. At this time, in their eyes, we are just ordinary businessmen. And until now, I know very little about the details of the organization behind her. Although this woman's level is good, she is obviously not the chief envoy. If she knows very little, what if they have means of preventing leaks? As far as I know, there are many ways to protect memory from being probed. So if you don't know the number of opponents, it's better to hide in the dark first. Escalating the conflict will only bring more variables. Hog nodded in understanding. Then what if the other party's actions bypass this Azalea? She doesn't seem very smart. Maybe she is just a small player in that organization. Indeed, Anduin nodded approvingly. I didn't gain much from following her before, but it's different now that they stole those jammers. It's not just curiosity when you come here to steal things. As long as they use them, I will catch them. I see, Hog said thoughtfully, scratching his neck with his hind paw. But I saw that woman seemed hesitant to speak to you. Does she have something to say? Okay, you actually noticed that too. Anduin glanced at Hog in surprise. This is something I find difficult to understand. Logically, she should put the interests of her organization first, but I sense something strange in her emotions. Maybe her connection with the Silver Spear is more complicated, which is why I didn't attack her rashly. So you want to use her as a breakthrough? Then what should we do after we dig up their details? Should we clean them up? There is nothing good about these smugglers, and they are likely connected to that werewolf, Hog said, his face becoming serious with deep hatred in his eyes. Cleaning up must be done. I can't stand having people with ulterior motives playing tricks around me. Anduin narrowed his eyes, deep in thought. However, no matter what I do, I like to seek the best interests and must prioritize ensuring my own safety. If I can rely on the Ministry of Magic to solve them without being exposed, then that would be ideal. As for the werewolf Griffin, Anduin's eyes flashed with murderous intent. He is so good at running that even now I don't know where he is hiding. If I can use the Silver Spear to find him, that would be excellent. Understood, my lord, Hog said, baring his sharp wolf teeth. At this moment, he showed no trace of his usual hazy temperament. I will alternately monitor them with Cheeky. I must avenge myself. Yeah, Anduin nodded indifferently. Just then, another customer entered the store. Anduin and Hog immediately demonstrated their acting skills. Anduin turned into a smiling shop owner, while Hog adopted a cute expression, resembling an innocent dog. In the following weeks, apart from returning to Hogwarts once or twice to supervise the college, Anduin spent most of his time at his company. He was either managing the store and handling business or secluded in his workshop, researching new products. As Christmas approached, the store was specially decorated to create a festive atmosphere, and several new products were launched to cater to the holiday season. The alchemy props he sold were quite exquisite and favored by many wizards, quickly becoming the top choice for Christmas gifts. The quality of the products even attracted attention from several newspapers and wizard radio stations. Although Anduin declined interviews, he seized the opportunity to buy advertisements in the Daily Prophet, Quick Guy, and on the Wizard Radio Network, sparking a shopping frenzy. Among the most popular items were various decorative lamps and phonographs. Customers found the prices incredibly reasonable, almost ridiculously cheap. This was a deliberate effect Anduin created using the anchor effect. Similar to the strategy used in a Buck's coffee shop, where some outrageously expensive products are displayed to make other items seem more affordable, Anduin showcased high-priced, luxurious items in his store windows. This anchored customers' first impressions, making them perceive the store's products as high-end and reasonably priced. Displayed prominently in the window were various pieces of gorgeous jewelry and a row of humanoid targets with exaggerated prices. When customers, influenced by their initial impression, encountered a product that was both luxurious and only a few galleons, they felt they were getting a great deal. This often led to a mentality of finding a bargain. During this period, sales of various consumer products soared, allowing the company to earn hundreds of galleons daily. Anduin was pleased with the success. Each time a lamp or phonograph was sold, it ensured that customers would return to his store periodically, either to pick new records or to replenish the energy storage element in the magic lamp. Despite the booming business, Anduin did not relax his surveillance of Azalea. End of this chapter. Chapter 339, Dorset County. It was a bit different from what Anduin had imagined. The jammers had been stored in Azalea's house and had not been moved. For a long time, their positions remained unchanged, which puzzled Anduin. Didn't Azalea have any accomplices? Why would she keep everything in her own home? In Anduin's view, Azalea played a significant role within the Ministry of Magic. During the last smuggling operation, the operatives had no direct contact with her. Logically, the alchemy equipment should have been transferred to the operatives. Yet, more than 10 days had passed without any movement. Azalea maintained a regular schedule as if nothing had happened. Interestingly, one of the 3 pairs of tactical leather boots that Anduin had sold to Azalea had been displaced over a long distance. This occurred a few days ago. During a routine inspection, Chi-Chi noticed that a pair of monitored tactical leather boots had moved rapidly, exceeding the sensing range of the magic tracker before she could react. Anduin's tracking device, which had been upgraded multiple times, could cover all areas of the British mainland, including Ireland. Losing contact indicated either interference or a significant distance. Anduin believed it was the latter, as the tracker last pointed northeast towards the European continent. It was likely that Azalea had transferred the boots to Europe, possibly by owl mail. Did she send them back to headquarters? Or was it a gift? Anduin pondered various possibilities, but had no concrete solutions. He couldn't just go abroad to track the signal. While he was concerned about the distant signal, the jammers also changed. One day before the Christmas holiday, around 8 p.m., Chi-Chi hurriedly apparated into the alchemy laboratory. "My lord, the jammers have moved." Chi-Chi, clutching a few trackers, rushed to Anduin's workbench to report. Anduin raised his brows, finally seeing some action. "Where's Azalea? Has her position moved with the jammers?" he asked sternly. "No, Azalea's tracker is in another direction, consistent with her usual position in the Ministry of Magic. She should still be there now," Chi-Chi confirmed after double-checking a tracker. "It seems her accomplice has finally appeared," Anduin nodded. "Have all the jammers moved? Has the surveillance around Azalea's house observed anything unusual?" "My lord, only 8 jammers have moved, including 4 anti-apparition jammers and 4 shielding jammers. The remaining 2 are with Azalea as usual," Chi-Chi reported. "Monitoring from Hog's side shows no changes at Azalea's house. They likely moved through apparition or the flu network." This matched previous observations. Azalea always carried 2 jammers with her since they were stolen. "Very good. Tell Hog to watch the house. I'll chase after them. I want to see what these guys are up to," Anduin said, narrowing his eyes. "Yes, my lord." Chi-Chi quickly disappeared to convey the order to Hog. Anduin swiftly put on his equipment and apparated to find Chi-Chi. "Hog, keep an eye on the house and monitor Azalea. Contact us through the communication amulet if anything unusual happens." Anduin instructed Hog, who was sitting in front of the surveillance equipment. Anduin glanced at the monitor, then turned to Kiki. "Let's go," he said. Kiki nodded obediently, stepping forward to take Anduin's hand, and they apparated away from Diagon Alley. Kiki's skill in apparition was more advanced than Anduin's. Not only did it require less effort from her, but she also had better control, allowing her to apparate to places she had never been before. Anduin had always wanted to master this skill, but he was not yet proficient. For this tracking mission, he needed Kiki to lead the way. Kiki enveloped Anduin in an invisible cloud of smoke, moving at high speed through the air and solid objects in their path. As time passed, Anduin could feel them gradually leaving London and heading southwest. With a clear goal in mind, Kiki moved swiftly, covering several counties in just a few minutes. As they neared the edge of the British mainland, Kiki's magic began to wane, and they appeared in an uninhabited, open area. Kiki took a few deep breaths. Despite her extensive training with Anduin, which had significantly improved her magical control and reserves, it was still challenging for her to transport a wizard with substantial magical power. "My lord, the tracker's pointer deviated significantly just now, indicating that we are close to or have even passed the target," Kiki reported, catching her breath. "I didn't want to apparate into a complex terrain, as it could easily separate us. I suggest we continue the rest of the journey on foot." Thank you, Anduin said, nodding approvingly. You've done well to roughly lock in the position. After stabilizing their appearance, Anduin confirmed their location, which appeared to be somewhere in Dorset County, in the southwest of England. He then took out a bottle of Vitality Tonic and handed it to Kiki. Once she had drunk it, Anduin gently embraced her. He unfurled the jet-black cloak behind him and soared into the air with a swift motion. This cloak, which Anduin had developed after mastering the floating spell, could replace a broomstick and allow him to fly. Although its top speed wasn't as fast as a broomstick, it was more flexible. Enhanced by his extraordinary level of floating spell, it could also achieve very high speeds, comparable to the latest broom models. Holding Kiki in his arms, both of them activated the disillusionment charm to become invisible. Kiki held a tracker to guide their direction, while Anduin focused on reaching their target location. End of this chapter. Chapter 340, The Weird House. Anduin mobilized his magic power and rushed forward at an incredible speed. Despite the rapid movement, the flying cloak remained silent, making the two of them seem like invisible ghosts in the dark night. Under Anduin's skillful control, they passed through the jungle, crossed a small town, and gradually moved away from populated areas, heading towards a forest with more complex terrain. After nearly half an hour of controlled flight, Anduin received a report from Kiki indicating they were close to their target. He gradually slowed down, lowering their altitude and converting the high-speed sprint into more flexible, small-scale movements, maintaining a height of about 10 meters from the ground. The surroundings were pitch black, with trees and high slopes all around. Based on the distance, Anduin judged that they were on the outskirts of a small town in Dorset. As they climbed over a hillside, their view suddenly opened up. In front of them was a wide, empty valley with a pleasant, scenic view. The center of the valley was flat and open, with gentle slopes on both sides covered in a thick layer of snow, as it was winter. The valley appeared empty, but through the tracker, Anduin knew their target was inside. He also sensed subtle magical fluctuations ahead, indicating the presence of a shielding jammer, powerful enough to prevent wizards from detecting any clues. Anduin descended to the height of the hillside and put Kiki down. He then took out his monocle from his coat pocket and put it on. The empty valley in front of him transformed dramatically. A single-family house with a strange yet naturally beautiful design appeared in the valley. It was somewhat comparable to the burrow of the Weasley family, but more regular and less haphazardly constructed. A faint light emanated from the house, and figures could be seen moving inside. Anduin even noticed some shapes that were distinctly different from humans through the window. Is this a magical animal? Does someone keep large magical animals at home? Anduin wondered aloud, staring at the house. He then used his echo glasses to scan the surroundings. The people in the house didn't seem to be the ones who deployed the jammers, so it was likely that those responsible were hiding nearby, possibly targeting the house. Using the echo spell, Anduin probed around the house and quickly located the jammers. They formed a rectangular perimeter around the house. However, despite his thorough search, Anduin couldn't find any figures nearby. Even after circling the entire valley from a distance, there was no trace of human activity. The jammers appeared to have materialized out of thin air, with the surrounding snow remaining undisturbed. "How is it, my lord? Have you found them?" Kiki asked curiously, as Anduin returned from his reconnaissance. Anduin shook his head helplessly. "I can see the 8 jammers, but I can't see anyone at all. It's as if they disappeared into thin air. Could they have sneaked into that house?" "Shall we sneak in and have a look?" Kiki suggested in a low voice. Anduin shook his head again. "It's too risky to break into such an unknown place. We don't know if this is the headquarters of that organization. Maybe these jammers are just for them to guard their homes. Although it doesn't look like much, everything may be counted." Then, Kiki, feeling frustrated by the lack of options, rolled her eyes. "Why don't we turn off the jammer and attract people from the Ministry of Magic? Maybe that way we can catch them all." "It's still a bit inappropriate," Anduin replied thoughtfully. "Although these jammers have my back door, our main focus this time is on collecting intelligence. We should try not to let them know that someone can manipulate these devices, If we shut them down remotely, it would expose us as a target. Anduin was cautious about revealing the existence of the back door unless absolutely necessary, as it could easily be traced back to him. Then what should we do? Just watch and wait, Cheeky asked, feeling lost. Despite Anduin's teachings to think more strategically, her thoughts couldn't stretch that far. Be patient, Anduin said, gently patting Cheeky's head. They came all the way here and used all the jammers. They must have a purpose. Let's wait and see what happens. He then took out a bottle of potion from his bag and handed it to Cheeky. Although our equipment can keep out the cold and heat, it's not good for your health to be exposed to cold air for too long. Drink some potion first, and then stay invisible here. I'll sneak closer to see if I can find anything. Chi-Chi knew that Anduin was always cautious and would likely run faster than her if danger arose, so she didn't express any worries. After taking the potion, she quietly hid in the nearby bushes. Anduin carefully maintained his floating state, activating all the invisibility and silence functions on his body. He slowly floated towards the house, stopping about 100 meters away and hiding behind a thick birch tree to observe. As he got closer, Anduin saw more details through the window of the house. He noticed a large, somewhat malnourished vulture turning its head to look outside. Recognizing the magical animal immediately, Anduin noted that the bird was almost as tall as an ostrich. Through the window, he also saw several other magical animals, including a Niuxiu, a moon-crazy beast, and a ball shunbird, all in excellent condition. The house resembled a small zoo. Suddenly, 2 cats and raccoons sprang out from the cat hole at the main entrance of the house, jumping into the snow to play. "Hobby, Millie, don't run around," a childish voice called from behind the door as it opened. End of this chapter.